What happens when you have an amazing topic and you refuse to tell your co-host what it is? Stay tuned. You're about to experience it next. Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott. He's Chaffee. This is Business Success. Chaffee, we're going to get right into it. Every once in a while, I love to throw a curveball at Chaffee because one of the things about being an expert at what you do and also letting go of control is having things sprung on you. And I'm like, oh, what is it? What am I going to talk about? What's this? What's that? And it's just part of life. And sometimes we try to control things so much that we take the joy out of it. And sometimes the surprises, the twists and turns, when you say things you don't know that you're going to say, they bring a real juice to life, in my opinion. So that's what today is all about. Well, that's not what today is all about, but that's what Chaffee knows about today, is that he doesn't know what we're going to talk about. So Chaffee, don't you love it when your co-host springs surprises on you like this?
Well,
Live
first of all,
in front of millions and millions of viewers.
so first of all, let me just say that when you say sometimes you like to spring things on me, can I change that to a lot of times versus sometimes? So just so everybody knows, we do have a list of topics that we, want to go through and discuss to make sure everyone gets value from that. And like today, Scott says, we're not going to talk about anything on that list. We're going to talk about something completely new, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. So thanks, Scott.
And I think this in itself is an important lesson, right? Like one of the things I learned on my personal growth journey, and I took a lot of courses, a lot of retreats, was that sometimes we try to protect people. We try to make sure everything is like perfect and safe. And yet that's not always where the joy is. We often talk about getting out of our comfort zone. And one of the aspects of the trainings that I went through was this whole idea of being okay with not knowing what's going to come out of your mouth and to be trusting in yourself that because if you agree that 95% of our thinking is subconscious and 5% is conscious, if you're trying to do everything consciously, you're only at 5% capacity. Whereas if you allow your subconscious to flourish and express itself, sometimes it's going to say things that are like totally inappropriate, but those totally inappropriate things are the dark shadows of our lives that we need to look at. Like, why did I do that? Why did I behave that way? And then when you do that self-discovery and you do that self-inquiry and you come up with the reasons, you've maybe healed that in your subconscious, or your subconscious, which I always think of as a separate person from my conscious, is now not mad at you, right? And so it's going to help you. So I always think if I run into a tree, then, or I walk into a tree, I don't do a lot of running anymore, then that's my subconscious saying, Scott, I'm pissed off at you, and smarten up. And then it's like, well, okay, why would my subconscious be mad at me? And well, I was frustrated at work and I told myself I was an idiot. Well, I'm telling my subconscious it's an idiot and it doesn't like that. So that's why I walked in the tree, sort of thing. So anyway, I like to throw this on Chaffee because I know, first of all, that Chaffee is in tune and he is an expert and he always comes up with wise things. And it's always just fun to do stuff off the cuff because we're relaxed. Like, who knows where this is going?
Fun for who, Scott?
For me.
Well, what I do want to add, though, is that if you are a public speaker, then experience this experience once in a while, have this experience, because if you're a public because there's actually two kinds of public speakers, Scott. One is that they memorize everything, right? They have a script, they have a program, they have a something that they've written down, and they have everything memorized step by step by step. Now, what happens though is that somebody in the audience asks a question and then they don't know what to say because they haven't memorized what to say, right?
Yeah.
As a good public speaker, though, one of the things that I've always taught was that, you have your bullet points that you want to cover, right?
Yeah.
So here are the main things that need to be covered. And the rest of it, as you said, Scott, is that you trust yourself, you trust your knowledge, you trust your expertise to make sure that those topics are covered, and you adjust the speech according to the audience, whoever's in the audience. And so, if you have a memorized presentation, you could be talking to the wrong audience. But if you have 3 or 4 or 5 topics, that you can customize that to any audience whatsoever. And so what you're saying is absolutely true, is that trust yourself, trust that you know the information, and trust you're going to say the right things for the audience that you're sharing it with, because it comes from the heart.
Yeah, perfect. Well said. Okay, so we're done then. Thank you very much, Chaffee. You basically covered everything. And actually, my topic is not this, but I really wanted us to spend some time on this aspect, because I think it's important for all types of success, right? Like, we go into meetings, we don't always know what's going to be said, and if we always stick to this strict structure, like you said, your audience might not need it. And there's nothing more cringeworthy in my mind than watching someone talk, especially in a small, intimate group, and that they can't get off their list. They'll be lost, right? What
Right.
their list is not appropriate for this group. And it's just like, oh, come on, right? So,
By the way, Scott, I do want to add too that this skill is also good for 2 other reasons. One is if you're a salesperson and you're looking to sell something to somebody, know your topic, right? You have to know your key points of your product or your service that you want to sell somebody.
yeah,
And excuse me. And the second thing is, if you're in the corporate world and you have to do a presentation to a bunch of managers or executives, this is the same thing, right? And so this skill set of trusting yourself and first of all, being prepared, trusting your information, knowing what your main points are, and then trusting yourself to say the right things, um, goes for public speaking, goes for presentations in a corporate world, goes for teachers if you're teaching somebody, goes for salespeople. So it's as you said, it's a key important thing, is that you want to be prepared, you want to know the key factors you're talking about, and then trust yourself to say the right things and adjust accordingly to your audience.
yeah, yeah. And it's also something that you can practice. So
Yes.
don't try and do this for the first time to the president of your company. You get into safe situations where, like Toastmasters, for example. I think they do have one part of their meeting where they say, okay, Chaffee, talk for 2 minutes on, and then I don't know if they pick some weird talk, polar bears and Churchill or something that they know you don't know anything about, so that you get up there with the idea of being able to sound convincing when you don't know what you're talking about, or that they put you on the spot with that. And I think it's an important skill.
Yeah, Toastmasters is a great organization. They do teach you the structure of public speaking. As you said, it's not just a get up there and talk for 2 minutes. There's a structure for that. And so if you're looking to get better at public speaking, get better at presentations, they're a good organization. I do want to. There's I guess something to be aware of, though, is that they're more of a how do you say, a hired public speaker kind of training.
Yes.
So that's where you get paid to speak, right? They're not a sales type public speaking where you have to get up in front of somebody and sell something, and that's how you get paid. And so there's 2 kinds of speakers: one that is paid and they go up there, they do your speech and they get off, and then the other one that gets up on stage and sells something, and that's how they get paid, a commissioned speaker.
Right.
And so you know the Toastmasters is a great organization, and they do really well with the paid type speaker, which can help later on if you want to become a commission type speaker. Only they do teach you that structure.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. It's also a great networking group. And
Yes.
when it comes, and here we are on a total. Thank you very much for ruining my show, because this was not at all what I wanted to talk about. This is what I mean, though, right? This is really important information. Like, I think everybody who speaks should go spend a year at least at Toastmasters, and you're going to learn some very foundational things, and you're going to get some really good practice, and your confidence is going to grow a lot if you participate, right? And then from there, you can take those and use the pieces that you need to use as you move forward. So Caduce,
And we have
Toastmaster.
no affiliation with Toastmasters. We don't get paid by them or anything. So
There's
just
no affiliate link in the
so
comments. All right, so let's get to the meat of the nut here. So we've already had one show on getting outside your comfort zone. And the reason that I brought this up is I had lunch today I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here for 4 days. I'm at an event that one of my clients puts on to see how he works. And I've already had a huge number of insights into my client that I had no idea before. So I'm really happy that I'm here. But another friend of mine lives in Atlanta, and I hadn't seen him in many, many years. So I pinged him, said, hey, I'm in town. Turns out he came to this event because he knows my client and he knows a few other people and he had to meet them. So when I'm like, when is a good time to come? He says, well, I'm here right now. So off to lunch we went. And as we were talking, one of the things that came up was my knee. And I was ill a few years ago and was basically on my back for 4 or 5 weeks. And my knees, my legs swelled up because that's where all the liquids were going. And when they unswollen themselves, I thought that the tendons had loosened because my knee would shift and crack. If I leaned a certain way, it would go snap, 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 right? And I was like, it had never done that. Had very little confidence in maybe making a sharp turn because I was afraid that my knee would collapse, blah, blah, blah. And here's the most important part was I thought there was nothing anybody could do about it, right? So I would walk, I would exercise, it would get really sharp pain, and I never did anything about it. And we came up in this conversation with my friend because he was telling, it was basically a lunch of 2 old guys complaining about their aches and pains and how they got them, okay? But it became front of mind because what happened last month was I was in Hawaii and I was visiting another friend of mine there, and I told him about my knee, and he said, I have this friend, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I've heard a million times. You have a friend that can cure everything, and it's not going to help me. So he said, I'm making an appointment for you. And I said, well, I have no car. He's driving. I can't get out of it. So I went. And they did this and they did that. And they shifted this, they shifted that. And they told me one thing about my knee that I didn't know. And that was that because of my inactivity, the muscles around my knee were inactive. So basically they just said, oh, nothing's happening, we're going to sleep. And nothing woke them up. So the therapy that they gave me was basically to align my knee a certain way, which was, basically he just pushed a hip this way and he pushed this way and he tapped here and then he was done. And he put a piece of tape on which said he'd hold everything where it was. Okay, I don't know. And the second part of the therapy was these 2 like electrodes that they would poke on each side of my knee, and it would give a little electric current. You couldn't even feel it, and it would activate the muscles. So they do this for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, thank you very much. And I walk out, and I don't really think too much about it. It's like, sometimes you do stuff, and it's a waste of time, and it's just a waste of time. But the next day, I noticed something very interesting. My knee didn't hurt when I was walking. And now it's been like 3 or 4 weeks and my knee still doesn't hurt while I'm walking. And so it was like, wow, like this really works. Now, of course, they're 2,000 miles or halfway around the world from me right now, but I need to find out who teaches this modality and where I can go see another therapist because I want to get them to do some more work on my knee and some more stuff. And this is a big, long story that brings around to the point of which I think there's nothing that can be done to help, but I'm not a knee expert. I'm not a physiotherapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dentist. I'm not nothing, right? But in my mind, it's like, I have to live with this and be grumpy about this pain in my knee for the rest of my life. And I thought that is exactly the same attitude I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and business people have. I have my business. I'm stuck in this rut. I can't change. Nobody can help me. And I know as a business coach, Chaffee, that's so incorrect. So I really wanted to kind of emphasize that. And I also wanted, before I give you the floor, tell a second story about 2 of my clients who I got executive assistants for. And they weren't at the same time. They worked together. I got one for one, and then a few weeks later, I got the second one for the second one. And the first one, he was like, his sister's his partner, and she insisted. She says, "You've got to get an executive assistant to get you organized, look after your mail," because what he would do is constantly check his mail. And when there was an Amazon email, he'd click on it, and then he'd go look at all the products Amazon recommended and take 2 or 3 hours, spend $500, and get nothing done. So the whole idea of the executive assistant was to cut down on his email time so he could focus on his work and be more productive. And the second one was like, "I don't need any help. I'm fine the way everything is." And so after about 3 months, I asked them both for a video testimonial. And they both started off saying the same thing. "I was very skeptical about this," and ended it with, "We are so happy that we have these executive assistants helping us. They've made such a huge difference in our business. I'm way more effective. I'm way more efficient. And and my business is really growing because of the fact that I'm focusing on the important parts in my business." Both of them thought that it was as they thought it was as bad idea to have an executive assistant as I thought it was a bad idea to go see this person about my knee. And so we don't know what we don't know. And because of that, we make all these assumptions that keep us in places where we don't want to be. But it's almost like I'm more comfortable with my sore knee than going to see somebody who may or may not fix my knee. And I know that's wrong.
It's not wrong, only it's just it's a lack of awareness, as you said, Scott. It's some people don't realize that they're stuck in the rut that they're stuck in. Right? So until somebody like your friend intervenes, or a coach intervenes, right?
An intervention, that's right.
Intervention, and really says, "Just do it," then you're stuck in your rut. And so part of what you're saying is just accepting certain things in your life when you don't have to accept it, because you don't realize. And the saying goes, ignorance is bliss, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are ignorant of some of the opportunities that are available to them. And this brings up, Scott, is that I always, it amazes me. I'm a refugee here, in the United States, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world. And this country has so many opportunities for so many people. And that's why everybody wants to come here, right? I mean, everyone wants to be in the United States because of the opportunities that are available. What surprises me, what amazes me, though, is that there are so many people here in the United States that were born here that don't realize how many opportunities are here. Right?
Yeah.
There are, especially if you're like a second or third or fourth generation individual, that your family has been here in the United States for 100 years. It's you don't realize just all the great opportunities that are here. And so that's why all these refugees come to the United States, start all these amazing businesses, make millions of dollars, and succeed, while American citizens that have been here, their family has been here for 2 or 3 generations, sometimes struggle, sometimes are stuck in their, small little towns that they grew up in, that their family raised them in, or and they don't get out beyond that because they don't realize what's available to them. They're ignorant of the opportunities. I'm not saying they're stupid, because that's a completely different word, right? It's just,
right.
There's a lot of things that they weren't exposed to, and they didn't have the wherewithal to go explore to see what was available. Whereas from refugees from other countries, they know what it's like to be suppressed. They know what it's like to not have the opportunities available to them. And when they come to this country, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I could do anything I want. I just have to work for it," right? I have to put in the effort. And that's the key. So, and so in business, it's the same
So you're
thing.
saying that refugees have a huge advantage over the Native Americans?
No, they don't have a huge advantage over the Native Americans.
Well, you just said that they all became wealthy and rich, and the regular poor Americans out on the farm in the countryside, toiling away. Now, there's a Vietnamese saying, by the way, I don't know if you've heard it or not. It's actually Chinese, but I'm going to convert it to Vietnamese
Okay.
for you. I'm not going to say it in Vietnamese. That would be terrible.
Well, if you're saying it, then it's going to be a Canadian saying then.
It is a rice paddy, no rice paddy, a rice paddy. No, in Canada we say short sleeve, long sleeve, short sleeve, and what that means is that Grandpa worked on the farm. He had his short sleeves. He was digging and he was hoeing and he was raking and all that stuff, and and then he didn't want that for his family, so he saved up his money. He put his sons and daughters in university. They became professors and accountants and lawyers and doctors. And because they grew up on the farm with Grandpa, they didn't want all the hardships they had. They looked negatively at all the hardships, getting up at 5 a.m. to milk the cows and get the eggs, and having to dig in the garden and help and all that stuff at such a young age. So they protected their kids from it. And the result is the kids grow up thinking, oh, life is easy. I don't have to work very hard. And then they don't make any money and they're back on the farm, as a farmhand because that's the only job they can get. And we see that over and over and over again in generations, particularly, in the last 100 years. There's lots of examples of it. And that's the problem is you have to, how do you keep that pioneer spirit? Like my grandpa homesteaded 2 different plots of land in 2 different provinces in the 10s and 20s, where there was nothing. He was like, I've got a shovel and I've got a whole bunch of land with rocks on it, and he had to clear it all out, and then he had to start putting the wheat down or the grass down and everything else. So we never had to do that.
So there's the exact thing you're talking about is in a book called The Millionaire Next Door.
I wrote it.
Oh, okay. Well, great.
I read it, actually. That would be more accurate.
So The Millionaire Next Door is written by Thomas Stanley. Thomas Stanley, he's a PhD, and he did, I believe it was like 20 plus years of research on what makes a millionaire a millionaire. And the research showed him exactly what you said, Scott, which was that first generation refugees come here and work their behinds off and make lots of money, and then they protect their kids. And by the 3rd generation, those kids are broke again or they're poor again because they didn't do work as hard as their grandparents or great grandparents. And
it's like there's a success principle that we refuse to share with our children.
Yes. Because we want to protect them from that, like you said, that work, that effort, and we want them to live a better life. And by doing so, sometimes you take away that work ethic that allowed you to become successful. And the book was very eye-opening to me. They say that there's a lot of millionaires out there because they work hard and they save their money. They don't overspend, right? And so because they've worked, 20, 30 years and saved all their money and just spent frugally, then that's how they became millionaires. So part of me is I love that idea, right? The refugee part of me loves that idea, and then the success coach part of me hates that idea because I believe in abundance. And I believe that this world is full of opportunities. And if you have the determination, the desire, and the willpower to go out there and work your behind off, you can achieve anything you want, including making lots and lots of money and living a grand lifestyle if you so choose. And I have done it. I know people that have done it. I work with people that do it. Look at you, Scott. I mean, you travel the world all over the place. You have income coming in from everywhere around the world. And you don't live an extravagant lifestyle, except you're living the life that you want. You're living the life that you've chosen versus having to live in a little tiny house and save all the time, right? So if you wanted to go out to dinner, have a nice dinner, you can do so. If you wanted to take a nice trip, you can do so. And I believe everybody can do that. So, I love the book for what the research that it provides. At the same time, I hate it because I believe in abundance. So that's my review of the book, by the way.
So I just want to clarify something. So I'm going to ask you a question so that you can clarify, because I don't know the clarification. So Do you think you can have abundance without hard work?
Do I think you have abundance without hard work? There, yes, for
And
a
let's not make that an absolute. Okay, let's say
correct.
that there are that's a 1% exception to everything we say,
Yes.
but generally speaking,
So generally speaking, no. And as you said, it's not an absolute. So yes, there are some people that are just lucky. There are some people that are in the right place at the right time. I'll give you an example. When I first started in real estate, I'm in a market that the Chicagoland market. It was a very high price market, although it was very steady. A lot of blue collar workers, a lot of people working really hard, and we had appreciation in properties, and you had to know real estate here in the Chicagoland market, depending on where you're at, depending on what you're investing in. You had to know the right properties to buy, fix up, and sell in order to make money. Well, I met a couple that was in the Las Vegas market. Now, the Las Vegas market in the early 2000s was ridiculous. I mean, you could buy a house for over market price, wait 6 months, and make $50,000. I mean, you could sneeze and make money in that market. It was, I mean, the appreciation in that market was just unbelievable. And so these people went out and went the traditional route and got a loan. They put 20% down on a property. They got a loan for the remaining of the property. And then they waited 6 months. That property went up 50 to 75,000. They sold it. They bought another one. And then they ended up buying two of them, waited 6 months, and then sold those, bought four of them. And then in a period of about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, they had accumulated millions of dollars by doing this, just getting a bank loan and buying these properties, waiting for them to appreciate, turn around selling it. Now, they were in the right market at the right time. They did take some action, right? Only that strategy would never worked here in the Chicago market where I was at, or, the region in the Chicago market where I was at. And so they took advantage of that. Now, what I didn't like about them when I met them was that they were claiming that they were real estate experts and they were
right?
teaching people how to do it. And they weren't. They didn't do anything creative or special. They just went to a bank, got a loan, and they were at the right market at the right time. So I give them full credit for going out and doing what they did. At the same time, don't take credit for, don't make claims to be something that you're not, right? So regardless, like I said, they had a factor of being at the right place at the right time. Their effort, the work that they put in was a lot less than somebody else in a different market that would have done the same strategy, right? So
Right.
I ended up in the Chicago market where I live, ended up having to go to different states and doing different strategies in different states because that strategy just wouldn't have worked where I'm at, right?
So
So
what you're saying is you're jealous of these people because they just had everything fall on their lap and you had to struggle and work hard.
absolutely not. So what I'm saying is that there are exceptions to the rule, as you said, right? And uh, the saying goes is that the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? And so there
Successful.
is. I'm sorry, you cut out there. Can you say that again? Are you there, Scott? I lost your mic, Scott. I can't hear
Skyping
you.
me and it screwed
Oh,
up someone was
oh,
Skyping
there
me
you
and just screwed up my internet. So
go. Oh, there you go.
there are
You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, there are situations where you're at the right place, right time, and you have fortune shine upon you. And this is a slice of their life. I mean, you don't know what happened before then or what happened after then. Maybe
Right.
they had been trying in real estate for a long time and happened to be in the right place. I often say you can't hit a home run and win the game in the ninth inning if you don't go to bat and you don't play baseball, right? So you have to be in the game, and then when you're in the game, recognize opportunities when they come, and they certainly did that. But I agree with you. I think generally people discount the importance of really working hard at something. I think
Yeah.
also most people think they work really hard and they have no clue about hard work.
Which reminds me, one of my buddies is a real estate agent, and he says that the bar to becoming a real estate agent is so low that anybody can do it. Right? So, and he says that I think statistically speaking, the average real estate agent only sells like 3 or 4 houses a year. And he said anybody can do that. And he said, if I work twice as hard, then I could be successful as a real estate agent. And he said, twice as hard means I'm working 4 hours instead of 2 hours a day. So,
Oh dear.
so I'm not disparaging real estate agents. This is what he said, and he's an agent. So I just want to clarify that. He says most agents really only work a couple hours a day.
So I want to bring this back to my original topic that I didn't tell you about, which was, people not knowing what they don't know and assuming that because they're in whatever situation they're in, there's nothing they can do to really effectively change it. And then I just wanted to open that up to you in terms of some of the clients that you've had. Maybe they've had that feeling of like, I'm stuck in this thing, and it's just life the way it is, and then you're able to show them that they can actually improve it a lot.
It's funny. I've had clients in the past where there's this thing called ego as well, right? And a lot of the clients I work with are ultra successful individuals. So, they're multimillionaires, they do really well. And so they do get stuck. Even multimillionaires and successful individuals get stuck in a rut. They know what they know, and they know what made them money. They know what got them there. And so they get stuck in that, that lane that they're in. And the ones that I love working with that are ultra successful, that continue to grow, that continue to develop, are the ones that don't have that ego factor. Because the ones that do have that ego factor, it's funny. I've been asked by a couple people to work with them, to help coach and consult with them. And then when I give them certain advice, when I give them certain suggestions, they go, oh, well, that's not me, or that doesn't work, or whatever. I'm like, well, you paid me to come here and tell you what you should change or give you some suggestions on change. And now you're not even taking that. So why are you hiring me? Right. So,
yeah.
So that's, you got to have an open mind. You got to be open to suggestions, and not every suggestion is going to work. I fully admit that. Not everything that, I say is a magic wand and all of a sudden you're ultra successful. Only, it's something to think about. It's something to consider. And it's something worth sometimes doing some testing to see if things work or not. And when you just completely shut down, you don't do anything, then those are the times when you don't grow.
And if you're doing that with your coach, you're doing that with all the other people in your life as well. And what that does is, like you said, shut down. That's the perfect word. Like if someone asks me a question, I give them an answer, and they say, well, that's garbage, then I shut down. Like, I'm not wasting any more time of my time with you. And then they ask me another question. I say, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Because I'm not going to spend any time and energy on something. It's like banging your head against a brick wall. Like, the brick wall's not going away, and the head will, right? So I think that's a really important aspect of, being coachable, trying things. And you may try something that doesn't work. You may try something similar to it that doesn't work. And then you might try something that's similar to the first two, and it works really, really good for whatever reason, right? But because you learned from the first error, people are afraid of failure, but you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And you try these things, it doesn't work. Try these things, it doesn't work. Now you've learned an awful lot, even though you think you're failing. And then you can try something and it probably will work really, really well.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I've been working with a lot of business owners over the past, 20 years. And I've seen some really ultra successful people and some not ultra successful people. And the thing that always amazes me is some of the most successful people, how did I say it politely, aren't the brightest individuals.
I know. Makes me really mad.
I don't want to be rude. Only, they're not the brightest individuals. They're not, a lot of them don't have college degrees or education. Some of them didn't even complete high school, and they're ultra successful. And the reason why is that they went out there and did different things, and they got in trouble. They messed up. They had some failures. They lost money. Only the key was that they learned from it and didn't give up, and kept doing things. And, the most successful people I know are the biggest action takers and the hardest workers, because they just go out there and they don't let anything stop them. They just keep at it until it succeeds. And then when it succeeds, they run with it, right? And they do more of it. So,
And when you were talking, I had in my picture a farm field, and it had been plowed, and going along and planting a single seed, and then covering it up, and then watering it, and then having the plant grow, and then just doing that over and over and over and over again. And at the end of the season, you've got this magnificent harvest. And that doesn't take a lot of intelligence. It takes some knowledge, of course, because you don't want to overwater them or underwater them and put them too close, or weeds and all that sort of stuff. Not saying it doesn't take any knowledge, but it's a relatively simple process. And my problem is that would drive me absolutely crazy, and I would never do it, right? And so, it's a matter of deciding what you need to do to be successful, and then doing that over and over again until you become, super expert at it. And then you see the opportunities and you're able to take advantage of it. And you're right. Like sometimes we can overthink. I guess what I'm really saying is I would overthink it, right? And I would get really, really creative, and I would have 15 different types of seeds and 45 different rows and patterns. And this guy that just plants the friggin' seed is the one that's going to have the huge crop and make all the money.
It's funny you say that. Some of my most difficult clients are the most well-educated clients. They're the ones that have engineering degrees, attorney degrees, an accountant, right? Doctors, because they, as you said, they tend to overthink everything. They just say, you tell them to do something, they're like, well, if I do this, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if this? And then they end up not doing anything because they're still thinking about something.
Yeah.
When
or they
the
want to
individual,
do it so perfectly. No, it's like it's a seed. Get it in the ground. Get some water in it.
I had one real estate client that I was working with that I would tell him to go look at some properties and make offers. Well, he came back and I said, "How many properties did you look at, and how many offers did you make?" And this was after a week of time. He's like, "I looked at one property. I'm still looking at it." Right. And then he pulled up the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet had this detailed analysis of the property and all the surrounding properties and the area and all this kind of stuff and numbers. And he spent the entire week analyzing this one property. And when we looked at the property again, it was already sold. So but he hadn't even made a decision on it. And by the time he came around and looking at it again, it was already gone. And we call that analysis paralysis. And that's exactly what he had. He just overanalyzed the heck out of everything. And when I told him, there's a simple formula to make, you follow this process, you follow the system, and you can make 5 offers a day. Right? And it just blew his mind. He's like, how can I do that? How can I make 5 offers a day? What if this? What if that? And so, when you start breaking things down, the people that are most successful in investing in real estate make 5 offers a day or more, because they know that those offers open the door to negotiations and deals, and you don't get deals unless you make offers. And so, it's funny sometimes, sad and funny. And I know, because I'm an engineer, I graduated as an engineer and was in the corporate world for 10 years. So I get it.
Awesome. So
The
Chaffee, we're
profession
getting
is
towards the end
almost
of our time.
something completed.
We're getting to the end of our time. Randy Simpson had a comment. Are you still doing deals in the Chicagoland area? I'm in the western suburbs. So I want to answer that question for Randy before we sign off.
Well, first of all, thanks, Randy, for tuning in and participating, asking the question. The answer is no, I do not do deals in the Chicagoland area, because the Chicagoland area, unless you're a fix and flipper, really isn't the best market, or you're in the south side of Chicago, downtown areas. It's really not the best market to be in for the strategies that I like to do. The strategies that I like to do are better actually out of state. So I prefer to do out of state deals and build teams out of state. So
cool. Awesome. So Chaffee, we're going to bring up where people can get a hold of you, and then tell us a little bit about what people can expect afterwards. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect from coaching.
Awesome. So from coaching, depending on if you're working with me or you're working with somebody else, only if you're working with me, what I like down and actually give you a questionnaire that you fill out, and then we go through that questionnaire to figure out where you're at. It's important. For example, if you turn on a GPS, the first thing it asks you is where you're at, and then figure out where you want to go. And so that's the important thing, where you're at and where you want to go, because if you don't know where you're at, it doesn't matter where you want to go, because I can't give you directions because I don't know where you're at, right? So those two things are important. Figure out where you are at, where you want to go. We put together a plan, we work on that plan, and then we constantly tweak that plan to make sure that we help you get there. That's it in a nutshell.
Wonderful. So Facebook user, thank you so much for the value you're impacting to us. Appreciate your comment. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you. We love you. We love doing the show. We love having you participate on the show with us. Next week, we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled topic, unless I have lunch with another friend of mine. I'll be in Mexico next week too, by the way. So that'll be fun. Hopefully I can show you a beautiful view. There's just ugly construction outside my window right now, so I don't want to go off that.
Awesome. Well, again, like you said, Scott, thank you for everyone coming on.